challenge. And it's difficult, you see, because the audience has got one view of you, and you're on the other side of it. And sometimes we've done gigs that we thought were like the worst gigs we ever did, and the audience response has just been incredible, and vice versa. Very, very strange. And it's always a bit different. We've been together for 13 years, and we've been through so many different things together, you know, and we've made so many records together now. It's a very sophisticated musical collaboration.
Eurythmics on tour. See them in a space near you. Paul McCartney's tour is set to kick off in Norway with a bang. Ticket sales for his first tour in 13 years have blown up the National Post Office computer. Big audio dynamite is to go on the road, with support coming from Paul Simonin's band Havana 3AM. And Moscow is not yielding megabucks for some Western artists. Bob Dylan has cancelled his tour because of insufficient funds for promotion. And of course, some of the most heralded tour moves over the last few months have been those of 5 aging Englishmen who happened to kick enough ass 20 years ago to ensure their notoriety then and for future generations. Yes, the Stones are back on the road, complete with a $35 million merchandising deal. So Rubberlets Mick, Keith, Woody, Mr. Mandy Smith and dear Charlie Watts are planning to show us again what the rock and roll is all about.
It's a really fun stage. It's different from the 81 tour insofar that it's much darker in mood. There's no cherry picker, but there's not a tremendous, well, I'm not saying there's no gimmicks. I mean, it's a very large stage. I mean, I think you've got to give a big stage in a large stadium. I don't think you want to play, you know, on a postage stamp.
The Stones themselves may seem about postage stamp size from a lot of the seats in the huge venues they're playing this time out. It's the old rock and roll toss-up between intimacy and access.
The smaller the joint, the better rock and roll sounds. But I mean, at the same time, if there's that many people want to see it, what are you going to do? Live in a town for a year and play a garage?
The Stones have already played one garage-sized gig, a warm-up show at a small Connecticut club called Toad's Place. How was it?
I felt like I was a cat enclosed in a cage. You know, I was trying all these moves, you know, to run out of stage for like that much. I mean, it was a pretty good-sized stage for a club, actually. I mean, it was. But I had a good time, and you know, you get all excited, and I start messed up some of the arrangements.
And arrangements are a key factor in the Stones' new show. Instead of just firing up their hits for maximum onstage impact, they've actually gone back to the original records this time and tried to recapture some of their vintage feel.
On stage, things tend to get faster and faster and faster. If you play them year in, year out, it's just one of those things that happen. You know? Well, what will be after when we made that record? Let's see if we can just get back into that head for a minute. This is a pretty weird head. And then, geez, I had to look in and I said, no way.
Peering into the past does have its rewards, though. It's persuaded the Stones to pull out songs like She's a Rainbow and 2,000 Light Years from Home off the once-reviled psychedelic album, Their Satanic Majesty's Request.
We do a blinding version of 2,000 Light Years.
Really?
Which none of us can explain.
Where did that come from? What a good idea.
We decided to have a go at it. We thought, oh, we'll never do it. We've never done it before. Immediately we tried it. There's a couple of little guiders from Bill.
Are you running a Mellotron for this, or I guess you can just do it?
A couple of guiders from me, like how the chord structure goes. And what people play.
It's a dead giveaway, folks.
And how the intro works.
It's a dead giveaway.
Showing you how to play the intro on my bass.
I know, it shows you. I'm still working.
Not bad for 70 years old. And a man who has the dubious distinction of having a near-early demise of his musical career by wrecking his hands, punching them through a wall in frustration at his record company is Tom Petty. Still a young man, he almost did himself in credibility-wise as well by linking up with the pensioners' club, the Travelling Wilburys. To my mind, he was the saving grace of what could have been described as a comeback group. A man of some of the best words on vinyl, he's a man of few words in front of the camera. We caught some of them. Full Moon Fever is the first Tom Petty album without the Heartbreakers. It was originally conceived late 1987 when Tom met Jeff Lynne, George Harrison's producer, while waiting for a traffic light. This was before the Travelling Wilburys came about.
It's just, you know, just happened by accident. It was while I was taking a vacation. I started playing with my pal Jeff Lynne, and that was it, you know, it just started like that. I didn't know how far I'd go with it, or if I'd even finish it. And eventually I did.
Everybody's got somebody.
Tom is also part of the Travelling Wilburys, together with pals George Harrison, Bob Dylan, Jeff Lynne, and of course the late great Roy Orbison. Roy was also responsible for some of the backing vocals.
Well, he was one of those bigger-than-life people that I think made a huge impression on anyone that he came in contact with, you know. Just had that big aura about him. He was one of those magical kind of people. You couldn't put a band together as good as the Heartbreakers. I'm lucky to be in one of the best bands there is, so they're pretty active themselves. They're probably play on half the records that come out. They've got so many things going on. There they are now.
Tom Petty has always been a critic's favourite, so how would he like to be remembered?
If you remembered her and made any mark in this music or at all, I think that would be a very nice thing, just to be part of it all. Just to be remembered as part of it is all I could ask for.
So, you want to be a rock and roll star? There are more of them after the break, the biggest being Material Girl Madonna. Tears for Fears have a crack at the title, as does Mick Hucknall of Simply Red, and Ladysmith Black Mambazo. We also check out the mags in which all their secrets appear, the unavoidable fanzines. All this and more after this.
Feel I'm living, 'cause you're giving me strong taste. Feel I'm living, 'cause you're giving me strong taste, baby, strong taste. Feel I'm living.
Fresh breath, strong taste, Stimmerol chewing gum.
MTV presents the Brown European Top 20, the only chart show you need to watch, featuring the exclusive MTV European Top 20 chart, the most accurate, comprehensive chart on television. The Brown European Top 20, national charts to keep you up to date on what's happening country by country all over the continent. What's hot, what's not, the misses and the hits. The Brown European Top 20 has it all. Tuesdays at 8 o'clock and Sundays at 2, only on MTV. Don't miss it.
Yes, an inspired choice to stay with Week in Rock as we bring you the wet T-shirt look from Madonna, the fanatical side of the music magazines, Tears for Fears 4 Years On, and Ladysmith Black Mambazo. But first, the man most derided for his looks, but who always gets the gorgeous girls in his videos anyway. That's Mick Hucknall, slinky vocalist and frontman for Simply Red, an English outfit whose latest album, A New Flame, has spawned hits after hits after hit. What's their secret? Mick talks.
A new flame has come, and nothing she can do me wrong.
This record was supposed to be quite a mellow album. You know, that's what it came out as. It doesn't mean to say that I've necessarily softened in my way. It's just that that's what this album came out like. Maybe the next one will be completely different. It might be a house album. I don't know. But I refuse to just like get put into these boxes where you're supposed to forever be something. I'm being myself. My father tried to turn me into something when I was a kid, and I'll be damned if anybody else is going to try and turn me into something and get away with it.
Every time we say goodbye, I die a little.
When you're studying somebody else's songs that we recorded 20 years ago, you're understanding how they phrase their timing with the words, how they write the melodies, the chord structures, the whole thing. And the best way to understand it is to actually do it.
If you don't know me by
don't come up to Manchester, I get drunk, I get into trouble, you know. I leave clubs with women and all kinds of stuff up in Manchester. No one gives a hoot because there's no journalists up there. But if I did that down here, I'd be in the papers all the time. I quite enjoy it. You know, the more lies, the merrier. That's, you know, I think it's hilarious. But one day they'll slip up and I'll bust their ass, you know. One day they're going to slip up so bad, I'm going to be able to sue them for so much money that they're going to get their asses kicked, you know. So watch out, kids.
It's only love, doing its thing, baby. It's only love that you're feeling, girl, you're feeling.
They have the priorities right, you know. They seem to be the people least involved in that whole sort of work ethic trap, because they don't really think that like life revolves around working. Is that working is what you do in order to maintain your standard of living. It's like the last thing they want to do is do a lot of work. They'd rather do as little work as possible and then get on to having a good time, you know, which I think is really, seeing as you only live on this planet once, in my opinion, you might as well get the most of it.
Holding back the years, can't for me escape from all I know.
There's been moments when I've sort of thought about that, and I'm actually going to break out next year. I'm taking a year out next year, but if you compare that to the day in the life of your average plumber or guy working in a factory who gets up at 6:30 in the morning and gets 2 weeks holiday every year, I think I'd rather be doing this, you know.
But it's too tight to mention. I can't get an unemployment extension.
There's been a couple of instances when I've gone home. I've been in the bar, you know, and I've been speaking with some kid I used to be at school with, who's now, you know, divorced and sort of 20 kilos heavier than he was 5 years ago. Looks like a complete mess, and is saying to me, you know, in his drunken stupor, I could have done what you did, you know. If I'd have had the same chance that you had, I could have done it. And I just get angry and say, well, why didn't you do it then? I'd like to make at least 7 or 8 albums that I thought were very good. And then if I was to retire and go off and have kids and, you know, start a family and just go off the road and all that thing, I could then stand back and think that the work that I had done was valid and real, you know, because all the words I've written are about, they're either about myself or they're about friends. They're not like just cliched love songs. They actually mean something. They are about something. It's not just a pop game.
Life, the world, according to Mick Hucknall. A slightly different angle from Ladysmith Black Mambazo, a South African a cappella group who leapt to consumer consciousness by their association with Paul Simon. They've been together for 19 years. And if performing for Chuck and Lady Di means you've made it, then there's no doubt here at all. There never was, really, because these guys are pure class.
Boom bam, boom bam, boom bam bam. Boom bam bam forever, boom bam bam. Boom bam, boom bam, boom bam bam. Boom bam forever, boom bam bam. This type of music we call Skatamia, although many people they used to say Mbube. But I know that that is the name of the song, the name of the music we call Skatamia. This is our music. The music appeared from the Zulu dance. Even the action came from Zulu dance. Even the harmony. But now the harmony is a little bit different because the one who sings the high part is the man. Before that, at home, we used to sing together with the ladies. They come to me in the hotel and then they play the record. They ask me, is this you? I said, yes. I said, no. This is amazing to see you today. They love the music very much. They welcome us. That's why I used to say music is a universal language, because we sing another language, but they accept the music, they feel the music. I think it's very nice.
At the Prince's Trust in Britain earlier this summer, Joseph Shabalala and Ladysmith Black Mambazo were introduced to the Prince and Princess of Wales.
I'm very proud of this, especially because this is a contribution. I think I like contribution very much.
And their message about the current situation in South Africa for the royals was the same as a message for all of us.
My message is very powerful, but people, they don't expect that message, they don't respect it. I used to say, please, pray for us. That's all.
And Shout, Shout, Let It All Out was the anthem that shot to #1 in 1985. It then became the ditty everyone loved to hate. Tears for Fears, who penned the offending lyrics, seemed to disappear from the face of the earth after their short stay at the pinnacle. But 4 years on from Songs from the Big Chair, they're back with a new album and a catchy single that has everyone delving back into their Beatles collection. Kurt Smith has words on the new work from Tears for Fears.
After two hugely successful albums, The Hurtin' and Songs from the Big Chair, you'd have thought that Tears for Fears would stick to their original commercial formula on their latest album, The Seeds of Love, but they haven't.
After the last tour, I did say I never want to do that again. I just don't want to go through that. And this time around, I've been in the studio for 2.5 years nearly, and I want to get out and play again because it's, you know, we are musicians, and it's great fun for those 2 hours a night playing on stage. It's the travelling and everything else that gets to be a pain. But if all that's well arranged, and we've arranged it well in advance this time, then I think it will be okay. I mean, I'm sure by the end of the 6-month period I'll be saying I never want to do that again. But, you know, I'm quite looking forward to it as it is.
So out went the angst, out went the arty young wimps with synthesizers, and in came live musicians and singers. One such singer is Alita Adams. After a concert in Kansas on their last tour, the boys went to relax at the bar. Playing the piano and singing was this woman with an extraordinary voice. And when Kurt and Roland returned to London, they decided Alita had what they wanted, and they went in search of her.
So we flew back to Kansas, and she was playing in a different hotel, and we spent a few days there, got to know her, and she was such a great person, and she was still as good as we remembered her to be. So we brought her back to England, and she sings and plays piano on the album, and is now going to come out and tour with us more than full house.
As a prequel to the new album, a single, Sowing the Seeds of Love, has been released. Because it has a decidedly Beatles psychedelic feel, they decided to approach Jim Glassfield to make the video.
It's really weird for us because it's the first time we've given something to someone and had no real control over it, because all we did was we went out there for 2 days and he shot us doing our bits in front of a blue background and made us, you know, do all these certain movements. And he said, don't worry, because there's going to be an animated such and such in there, so don't feel a fool. It's very hard not to feel a fool doing that kind of stuff. So it was a bit weird when we were doing it. But I've seen clips of it now, and it was quite nerve-wracking because you've let someone else do it and we don't really have any control over it. And it comes in, you know, a few days before the single goes out. So if it wasn't very good, we'd have to use it anyway. But I saw some clips of it and it's great. I mean, he's done such a good job.
So Tears for Fears have really moved on. The angst is gone. The teenage music to commit suicide by is also out. But what happened to the arty young wimps with synthesizers?
We're more sort of arty old wimps with guitars now, really.
And what does the all-knowing music fan do when desperate for new news on his all-time favourite band or singing hero? Well, short of rifling the bins outside their home and searching the unlisted telephone lists for phone numbers, the all-knowing music fan, in pursuit of that little bit extra, subscribes to a fanatical fan magazine, or fanzine for short.
Say you want to read about a band who are on a very small independent label, or you want to find out about new stuff that you don't think you'll find out about in, say, Rolling Stone or Spin or anything like that. This is where you got to look.
Previous issues have included features on people like the Frogs, who are a gay supremacist folk duo from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Black Snakes.
We'll have interviews with Naked Ray Gun, My Bloody Valentine, and the Mekons in it, among others.
There's no telling exactly how many fanzines there are. This store carries thousands, with over 300 about music.
But, I mean, you also find fanzines about other subjects. My favorite is Murder Can Be Fun, which is a fanzine out of San Francisco, which focuses primarily on true crime and terrible disasters and things like that. But that's a personal interest.
Fanzines could be anything from hand-stapled photocopies to professional colored glossy spreads, depending on how deep the publisher's pockets are. But are the fanzines any good? Aren't the writers just fans?
They know what they're talking about, for one. They're people who've spent a lot of time listening to the music that they talk about, and they do a good job with very little money.
The first issue that I put out cost $500, and this last issue that I put out cost $2,000 to put out.
profit is not the idea behind most fanzines. Publishers say if they make back their costs, that's a success.
It takes a long time to get the money back, and by the time you have gotten the money back, it's really debatable whether or not you've really made anything from it when you figure out all the time you put in. But I mean, I'm not really doing. I don't make a living from doing it. That's not the point.
Some fanzines focus on a single band, more like a fan club newsletter. There are over 40 fanzines for KISS alone.
A lot of the stories that we would like to read weren't being covered, and we like to read about things that only a KISS fan could appreciate.
You know, the press always covers the Stones and makes things so sensational, and what I do with Beggar's Banquet is I show how human they are.
But are the bands even aware of these magazines?
Bill Drummond, yeah.
Bill, yeah. Bill, German, Bill, what? You know, of course. Really? I mean, how do you think he gets his information?
Those guys just will not go away. And no sooner does a Madonna single start on the downward slide and the faint possibility raised that we just might lose interest in the antics of the Material Girl, then a new video, a new single, a new load of hypes gets dumped on us, the unsuspecting public. And don't you just love it? Here it comes, a look at the new Madonna single, Cherish, and chat with her director, photographer Herb Ritz.
Worked on with Madonna, so here you go. Down north of Malibu. And it was just really rough ocean, and she just dove in, and you would never know it looking at the video, but she was freezing. I mean, we had blankets around her and covering her all up in between the playbacks. Through this one stylist, Sharon Simonera, I work with a lot for magazine work, she contacted this man who actually built these fish tails, you know, like merman tails. We didn't know how lifelike they'd look. We didn't know if they could work. We didn't, you know, it was one of those big ifs. The most enjoyable thing was just letting her loose and having her bopping around the beach and just singing to the playback. And luckily that swimming pool was very dirty, so it looked like the ocean.
And if Madonna gets you going, then get going. Here's what's on this week. On Wednesday, Simple Minds play the Patinoire de Malay in Lausanne, and Bava play the Music Centrum in Utrecht, and Texas play the Town and Country Club in London. Friday sees Boris Grebenshikov at the Ancien Belgique in Brussels and Deacon Blue in Amsterdam. Finally, the French newspaper L'Humanité has organised a festival in La Courneuve near Paris on Saturday. Bands featured include the Stray Cats, Youssou N'Dour, La Mano Negra, Jacques Higelin and Sheb Haled. That's our lot for Week in Rock this week, but don't forget that next weekend we'll see an extra special Week in Rock brought to you from LA and the show to win all shows, the MTV Video Music Awards. All the glitz, all the glamour, all the grease paint, the smiles, the tears. You can see it all on Week in Rock.